handoff. Adrian up the middle, room to the 20, cuts to the left to the 25, and Adrian's loose. He splits the defense. 50, 40, 30. Goodbye, baby. Touchdown!
We bleed purple and our bones are gold. Hear the horns coming out of our dome. Behold, we are Minnesota Vikings fans. We love when a player scores. We roar, ignite the stands.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Purple People Podcast. This is Adam Carlson, and here with me this week is Kyle Smith. Kyle West is away with a previous engagement, so this show will be just the two of us. Say hello to everyone there. There we go.
What's going on, everybody?
Don't be afraid to jump in. You got to fill up with a little bit more of the talking now that Mr. Kyle West isn't here.
Well, you see, I'm doing this supervisory course. I never knew getting promoted was such a pain in the butt, but that's what they've pegged me as. They're like, man, you like to talk. You're a good speaker. So let's see if we can muster that up tonight.
That's what I'd like to hear. I'd like to welcome everyone to episode number 120 of the Purple People Podcast. This show is entitled, Absence Makes the Heart Grow Ponder.
Ooh. See, if you guys don't know and listen every week, if this is your first time listening, just listen to the intros. If anything else, if you don't collect anything else, you sir have a craft.
I don't know where I got it from, but puns just come naturally. I don't know.
That's awesome.
But we're going to try to keep this a quick show because, let's be honest, no reasonable Vikings fan wants to talk about what happened on Thursday night.
That was brutal to watch. I know a lot of you that get on the Facebook page were as frustrated as I am.
Lots of finger pointing. And I know in losses it's easy to want to point fingers and try to figure out what went wrong. But sometimes there are just bad games. And I think this was just one of those all-around bad games. But before we talk about that, I suppose I've been calling it a game, so I've got to keep calling it a game. It wasn't too much of one, but let's go into the quick hits. I've got mostly transactions on here. Right before the game, the Vikings promoted quarterback Chandler Harnish to the 53. They released Rodney Smith to make room for him. And then after the game, Chandler Harnish was released, and Zach Lyon was promoted to the roster. I'm guessing they're hoping that Chandler Harnish will clear waivers and come back to the practice squad, either that or maybe they're going to roll with McLeod Bethel-Thompson on the practice squad only. Who knows? Right now, I'm kind of frustrated with the transactions the Vikings have been making lately, because releasing Rodney Smith and keeping Charles Johnson on the roster was a confusing move to me. Because Charles Johnson already cleared waivers once this year, I believe. And putting Rodney Smith out there and then having the Cleveland Browns claim him, that means that not very many teams passed on Mr. Rodney Smith when it came to the claiming process. And I don't blame him. Rodney Smith's a good player. He was one of my favorite players on the Vikings, actually. Saw a lot of potential in that kid, had a good combination of height and hands. I expected big things from him, but now he's going to be getting big expectations in Cleveland.
I was very sad when I got the update today, seeing that, and it only takes one day. Of course, it was a panic situation for us, you know. Teddy being out, we all know he's not out for the season, but Ponder has to step up. You have to have a backup. I believe somewhere in the internet, correct me if I'm wrong, I read somewhere Jarius might have been listed as our third, which is not any kind of a feasible option. I would hate for that to be the scenario. But long story short, I totally agree with you, man. Potential is what I saw. I know in the preseason I saw Mr. Smith get a lot of love from Teddy Bridgewater, and now that he's our starter, even if he was our last wide receiving option, he still would have gotten some attention from Teddy, like you said, because of his size and his composure. But good luck to you, Rodney. Hopefully you come back to us.
I don't understand why it wasn't Brandon Watts instead, who is a linebacker that already was an undrafted free agent. He is currently dealing with an injury, so he wouldn't be high on a team's priority list to put on their 53. He's a guy that I think would have slid right through. But maybe I'm putting too much emphasis on Rodney Smith, putting him up on a little bit of a pedestal that maybe he doesn't deserve to be put on just because of personal preference. I don't know, but personally I'm going to miss the guy.
I'm right there with you. Good luck, Rodney. Not going to say too many bad things. Obviously, you have a guy like Adam Thielen who made his way up to the starting roster, but if you do get cut, which since you're not on the Vikings, or get released, I should say, if you do get released from Cleveland, we would love to have you back. So hopefully, Mr. Spielman will keep his eye out.
It's true. And Teddy Bridgewater was named the Pepsi Rookie of the Week for Week 4. He faced some pretty stiff competition in there. He had Mr. Blake Bortles, who threw a touchdown in his game, threw for a little less than 300 yards. He also had teammates as his competition. Jerick McKinnon was in there, who had another big game for Week 4. But congratulations to Teddy Bridgewater and the Minnesota Vikings for getting not only the win against the Falcons that week in Week 4, but for Teddy Bridgewater winning the Pepsi Rookie of the Week.
It's funny, Kyle, you're not here, but I did tell him that the other day. I voted for Teddy about 30 times because I was on my phone. I was a passenger in a car, so I had nothing to do but just to press. And I voted for Jerick about 10 to 15 times. So that was really cool. I've always felt as a fan that only time we get attention, and it's positive, it's very quick, it's very subtle. But when there's something negative, like the AP story, they just have all day finally to talk about the Vikings. So it's cool to see a positive this week.
Absolutely. I guess they were saying if the game had been on Sunday, Teddy Bridgewater would have been 100% good to go. But because of the quick turnaround from Sunday, that they were afraid to progress with him the way he was. They didn't like his mobility in the pocket, being able to escape pressure with that sprained ankle, and they decided to go the safe route with Christian Ponder, which, if you call that the safe route, I don't know.
Well, and all in all, you guys know this is going to be a somber, blah, Eeyore kind of episode. Best scenario this week was playing it safe with Teddy. Obviously, as you can see, with players like Michael Vick who get injured a lot, or people that try to jump in and re-aggravate things. Like, if you guys have been paying attention to Carolina at all, Cam does not look like the original Cam, and he's got the bruised ribs, and he came back in expeditiously, as I should say. And I think it was a bad move on their part. I'm glad we didn't do that. Obviously, we've got slim pickings when it comes to next man up at the quarterback position. But I would rather it be, give Teddy the time to heal. And funny story you mentioned, if it would have been a couple of days, they mentioned this on the radio here today. Teddy injured his ankle on a Saturday, I believe it was, and he played a Thursday night game.
When he was at Louisville, right?
Yep, that's exactly right. I don't know if he said it or if they just quoted him from it. I didn't hear it come out of Teddy's mouth, but someone said, hey, if he had another day, he would have been ready to go. I truly believe that, but now he's got 9-10 days to get ready for Detroit.
Yeah.
Smart move on the Vikings by sitting him. I would hate to see him go down for the season as well.
I actually got something kind of interesting in my updates today on Twitter. The Vikings were given a 3-day weekend. They were given Monday off. And as a player that watched that, or as a fan that watched these players play on Thursday, I can't see how any coaching staff could justify giving these players any extra time off.
I don't know. Me personally, I wouldn't do it. I definitely wouldn't be too hard on the guys. I know Mike Zimmer is tough as nails, but you've already gotten, as he said in the interview, your face rubbed in it. Just like with the victory. I mean, they had, 3 days to get ready for Green Bay after an awesome win against Atlanta. You're not going to soak that in and just celebrate all week. You're going to have to move on. And I think that's probably their mentality. Move on, rejuvenate yourself. We've got to get past this game. We can't be sulking around. It's just one game. We've got 11 more. But you're right. I wouldn't do that after a huge blowout like that.
And like I said at the beginning of the show, there were going to be some good games and there's going to be some bad games. All around, this effort was one that was not good. We will see the coaching staff and the players bounce back. And I believe a lot of that does have to do with the leadership positions, especially the quarterback. I actually do feel that players, they may not knowingly do this, but I think players will play harder for Teddy Bridgewater than they will for Christian Ponder, just because of the kind of quarterback he is. And because of the calmness that he brings to the field, the demeanor that he brings to everything, I think that sort of play just spreads. And we saw a terrified Christian Ponder running out of the pocket, backing up, taking huge drops, doing 360 pick sixes, which I don't know if that's like something from figure skating or something that he learned. I don't know. But if he did that on the ice, he'd probably get a 10 from the Russian judges. So I'm not sure what was going on there. But before we go into talking a little bit more about this game, because I'm sure we got plenty more to talk about, we've got our game ball and our donkey. And I'm going to give away my donkey award first. And I'm giving to Vladimir Ducasse. The man got blown up all night by Latroy Guyon, and that is something that is just completely unacceptable. Although I understand that neither Ducasse or Guyon are top-flight NFL talents. Now, neither one is going to be a Pro Bowl player this year. But still, you got to hold your own, especially when you got a third-string quarterback that is on very limited reps in practice, that is a former first-round pick that's already had his just hopes and dreams crushed by being dropped to third string this year. You've got to work hard to make things as comfortable as possible for him, and I did not see that kind of effort from Vladimir.
That was tough to watch, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Latroy used to play for us, so
that's correct.
You've got to know somebody's got to tell you, hey, he was recently with us. You've got to know that he's going to have an edge. You know, when we play Chicago, Jared Allen's going to have an edge, and like you said, you're already down a peg or two. That should make you want to step up. But you know, I'm not saying he didn't try. I'm sure he did, but it definitely didn't work. Whatever the game plan was the other night, that was very tough to watch.
All right, so who do you got for your donkey?
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go a little bit basic, a little generic, but I don't want to give it away to the entire offense. But when you only score 10 points and it's all in the fourth quarter, and they've already started their backup quarterback, you know, it's terrible. I'm giving it to the line / Ponder. I'm gonna start out and get Ponder out of the way. When you have chances to make big plays, please try your best. Please make smart decisions. If he would have connected with Jarius twice, I think the score would have been a little closer. He did have some sort of in the range, throws, especially one that was just outside of Jarius's reach. But like you said, Ponder was pure Ponder the other night, and I hate to rag on the guy. I really like him as a person. I'm happy for his new family and everything, but on the field is what we're here to talk about. And when you did have the chance, I think one out of maybe every 6 or 7 throws, he might step up. Yeah. He might take a hit just to make that good throw. And he did have 1 or 2 of those the other night, but most of the time, flushed out of the pocket, getting sacks, giving up sacks that he could have avoided, or at least get it out of bounds. And then I'm going to go right into the line. Ponder is Ponder. He's going to be Ponder. We all know what his ceiling is, and we all know how low it can go. You've got to give him a chance to flourish. We beat the Green Bay Packers 2 years ago with him at the helms. I know Adrian was with us. I know he ran like a madman that game. But he did throw 3 touchdowns with no picks. Granted, we were at home. I get it.
Yeah.
Ponder has the capability if he has a good supporting cast. I get it. We're beaten down. We are not in an ideal situation. If you had to pick a sob story of the NFL, I'd say we would win by a mile. But nobody cares about that. So I'm going to give the donkey to the line and Ponder. It was not good. Not a good effort either way around.
Do you know what my biggest problem with Ponder this game was?
What's that?
My biggest problem was that he threw the ball 44 times.
Never. I don't think he's done that since he's been with us.
How can you go into a game against a team that is statistically the worst in the NFL at the run, has been giving up just insane numbers on the ground, and just completely abandon that run game even when you're down? If you're down 3 scores, still run the football. You've got your third string quarterback, minimal reps. You couldn't really get a whole lot of game planning in for him. Run the football. Christian Ponder can hand it off.
You did it so well last week too. Literally 4 days ago, your rushing attack without the MVP, best running back in the league, they went off. I was completely baffled by that. And I want to piggyback on what you're talking about the run game too. I'm starting to get a little irritated that we're not seeing a lot more of Cordero in the background. I know he's a receiver, but he said it earlier in an interview this year. When you get the ball, what is your goal? He's like, if I could turn it into a kick return every time, that's what I see. That's what I'm going to do. Do trick plays. If you got to set up two backs in the backfield, fake it, hand it off, or just straight hand it to him. Try it. We saw next to none of that. I mean, I know he left with an injury, but I want to see more of that. Norv, you said that when you got here. I have 10 plays ready for Cordero right now. Get him more involved.
But how many of those plays can he fit in a limited playbook with Christian Ponder?
This is very true. That's the only reason why I brought up the rushing, because I don't trust Ponder to throw to many people and not very far. But try it, and like you said, we didn't hit him with the run game, which is what we've been known for how many years now?
Smash mouth football.
It's very frustrating.
This should have been a game that the Vikings dominated on the ground, and instead they were the ones that just got eaten up. My game ball is going to Blair Walsh.
Yes, good choice.
Made his field goal, connected on his extra point, did not allow a single kick return.
That was probably my favorite, not letting them have a chance. I'm not sure how many times. I didn't really care at that point to see who Green Bay had back there to run it back, but I know Cobb used to take some returns in at some point. Don't let a guy like that get an opportunity, just like Cordero.
When you got a weird, wet, windy field, and your kicker can still just boom it out of the back of the end zone, that's a big bonus for your team.
Good job, Blair. A nice pick, man. Nice pick for your game ball.
Well, there wasn't a ton of things to choose from.
Nope.
So who'd you go with?
I am going to keep it short and sweet. I'm going to give it to Harrison Smith, not only because he got his third pick in 5 games. Watch out for this kid this year. I know it was a Matt Flynn pick, which is kind of easy, but they're not going to take that away from him on the stat sheet. They're not going to say, well, when he got a pick in Green Bay, it was Matt Flynn, not Aaron Rodgers. I don't care. And I love the blitz that he had. He didn't get a sack, but he hurried Rodgers, which led to a sack.
Yeah.
That kid's fast, and I love how hard he plays, balls to the wall. And knock on wood, here you go, guys. He reminds me of how speedy he is and how passionate he was when one Percy Harvin we used to have, just balls to the wall, except not as many injuries. So I love you, Harrison. Deuce, Dirty Harry. Keep it up, man. You're having a stellar year so far. So
I'm concerned about Harrison Smith, though, since after the game he was wearing a walking boot and had crutches. So
I did not see that.
Something to be worried about, something to be concerned about. There was really no reason to keep him in after he hurt his ankle in the game and they had him go back in. I understand that you want to still put your best foot forward and put forth the best effort you can, and even in a loss, but there are times that you have to say, okay, for player safety, we have to do this. They did it with Bridgewater. They should have done the same thing with Harrison Smith. I
would agree. I didn't know that. I was frustrated that night. I've been getting up early and going, with this class that I'm in, working out and stuff pretty early. So 11:30 and then waking up at 5. I think I cut it off at the beginning of the fourth quarter, so I'm not really sure when that happened. But that's news to me. It's not good news to hear.
The only bad time that you heard Harrison Smith's name called was on that long touchdown to Jordy Nelson, where it was one safety up top against Jordy Nelson that had a free run, and there isn't a whole lot you can do in that situation.
I see why Captain played it low as well. That was hard to watch. Reminded me a lot when Atlanta came in and got 2 pretty much freebie touchdowns. Harrison was trying. I remember watching him, but with that length of the field and you're the only person trying to chase Jordy Nelson down, which, by the way, Jordy Nelson's no scrub. I'll give a shout-out to the Packers. Kills me. You will never hear me say that again on this show. They played way better than us, but Jordy Nelson, watch out for him. I think he leads the league right now, in receptions and yards.
Great player, classy guy. You can't ask for much more from him.
He had a good game. I don't think he got too many catches, but man, he was wide open on that play.
That play was enough because my opponents in fantasy football this week in my pay league have him, and that was a double ouchie to me. I just had to double hang my head and shake it. Not good. We saw the 2 interceptions from Christian Ponder. Matt Asiata lost a fumble. Turnovers gave the Packers short fields, and the Vikings defense, which normally played pretty well in this game, they had the Packers have a lot of 3-and-outs, and the only time they really gave up a lot of points were on short fields or times when the defense was on the field for long periods of time with very short rests when the offense was on the field. So overall, I was okay with the effort that the Vikings defense put forward, aside from the tackling and bad angles. And while we're talking about tackling and bad angles, we have to talk about Robert Blanton. I like Robert Blanton, I do. And there's a reason why I'm trying to be easier on him, is because it's his first year as a starter. He's trying to adjust to playing positions that he isn't 100% used to playing, but he is getting posterized every game. There could be a debate to have him be the donkey for each of us in each of our games so far. I don't know if it's his inability to tackle, the bad angles that he takes, or I don't know if it's a size and effort problem. I don't know what it is, but the Vikings need to address this problem at safety.
It sucks to see this too, because you got such a stellar opposite with Harrison, but kind of a big question mark on there. But well, correct me if I'm wrong again, but wasn't he the one who got blasted by Eddie Lacy too?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I got on Facebook as soon as I saw that. NFL.com was on their game for that one. And I mean, let's be real. It's Eddie Lacy. He's a refrigerator running at a high rate of speed, but man, this is the sum of this whole game. It wasn't pretty at all.
Yeah, it was a mess of a game. Nobody really had a good game. Asiata ended up with 72 yards on 15 carries. He was averaging almost 5 yards a carry at 4.8. There's no reason he shouldn't have been force-fed the football. Along with Jerick McKinnon, who had 24 yards on 7 carries, a little over 3.4 yards per carry. The only touchdown scored in the game was by Christian Ponder running in a touchdown. I got a little bit of crap because I posted on both Twitter and Facebook that now Christian Ponder has the same amount of touchdowns on the year as Teddy Bridgewater. And fans don't want to hear that, so I apologize to those I offended with that, but it is a true statistic.
I laughed at that. That's a funny thing for the fans. We're all just angry at the game, and I jokingly mentioned a couple pictures too. There's a ton of Ponder hating pictures out there.
Oh, the memes are vicious.
Oh, they're so bad. And I know my buddy Adam here was like, taking defense for Ponder, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to take that down because you have a good point there. He does have the same amount of touchdowns as Teddy, and good for him for finding an open lane to actually make it not a complete blowout. He had to find some ray of light, but I will say, I always watch the pressers after. I watched them this morning on the way to PT, and I was like, he owns everything, and I'll give him that. He's a classy guy, and he said, if you want to point the finger of blame, start with me. And I feel terrible for this kid. I feel horrible for him. Like you said, first round pick, made the playoffs his first full year starting, and it's just been abysmal since. Just the worst situation to be in. But I want to jump kind of like a squirrel moment here. I want to give a shout out to Xavier Rhodes. I know we got 40-some points thrown on us. That's a defensive no-no. I'm sure Mike Zimmer was not happy with that. But he got hit early in the game. He toughed it out. As soon as he went out, I cursed really loud because I was just, damn it, Xavier, you're always getting hurt. I hate it. I mean, he plays very physical. Let's give him that. He came back in, and he started to show some flashes like he played Sunday against the Falcons. So kudos to you, man. I hope you keep and stay healthy.
He seems to be adjusting well to the NFL rules.
Yes.
Like we said last week, he's really got to change the way he plays because of how physical he is. And that's just something that the NFL has now. It's a passing league. Not much else he can do. Speaking of a passing league, did you see who the Vikings' leading receiver was as far as yardage and receptions?
Oh, man. You're doing a pop quiz right now. I'm going to fail. I did not.
Well, the answer is Adam Thielen.
Oh, touche.
He had 4 catches on 5 targets for 57 yards. A lot of that was in what Green Bay would consider garbage time, but Vikings fans would consider, hey, we're just trying to make it look respectable.
Exactly. 2 fun facts, too. He got a personal foul called on him, I believe, the other day, unsportsmanlike, and I was very irate because I didn't see it. I actually did my little magic and rewound. I didn't see anything. He was very heated, but he kept it calm on the side. I had another thing I was going to talk about. I'm going to transition to you while I collect my thoughts. I had something else.
I want to talk about dropped balls. Matt Asiata targeted 3 times, dropped every one of them. Greg Jennings had footballs thrown right in his hands and dropped them.
That was terrible. I know exactly which one you're talking about, too.
Even Jarius Wright was targeted 8 times and only hauled 3 of them in. And I understand that it's a wet football. A lot of them were thrown either a little high, a little low, a little behind, a little in front. And I get that. But when you are on the road and it's an environment like this, you have to put forth that extra effort to make the catch, reel it in before you do anything else. But I would like to congratulate Charles Johnson, Minnesota wide receiver, on his first reception in the NFL. It may have only been a 7-yard catch, but hopefully it's a start of big things for him.
That's awesome. Oh, man, we're trying to find something positive here. That's good.
I'm digging. Let's see here. What else do we got? Cordero Patterson had a rather pedestrian day returning. His longest return was 27 yards, averaged a little under 20.
Stupid penalties. Let's get to that, please. Speaking of Cordero, it's making me remember like you said, I think our average field position most of the game was like our own 15, which is terrible with Ponder in. But he had a return. I think it went well past the 50-yard line and it got called back. A lot of holding calls, a lot of neutral zones and offsides. And get your snap counts down. I'm sorry, but you're going to be facing probably the best quarterback in the league next to Peyton. It's allowed that the Green Bay fans are dedicated. They are loud, and they use that to their advantage. I saw Everson come across the line twice on a different snap count. I just wanted to throw things, and Mike Zimmer talked about it in his press conference. When we're horrible on third down, don't get a penalty. I mean, for the love of God, play it safe there. Give them a little bit of wiggle room, but. That we shot ourselves in the foot. I can't tell you how many times, and that is. I know he's pissed off as the coach. I was pissed off watching as a fan. You can't get, along with the turnovers that we gave, you can't have stupid penalties.
Both Sharif Floyd and Everson Griffin came out of the game with a sack each. Harrison Smith and Robert Blanton tied to lead in tackles with 5 each. But there was another guy that I kind of wanted to single out as someone who was out of position a lot, overran plays, and just really didn't look like he knew what was going on out there. And I got to point the finger at Gerald Hodges on this one. I understand that you're plugged in there because of an injury to Chad Greenway. I get that. And maybe it's something that you're not quite used to doing yet, and you're trying to adjust. But when you are a backup, it's your job to be able to come in and play at a high level. And Gerald Hodges, I didn't see that from you this week, and I didn't see it from you last week. So you are on my list of guys I want to see step up. Let's see it.
Next to him is Anthony Barr. He had a decent game. I love the effort he puts out. He's got a lot of potential. Couldn't really shine this game because we were all over the place. But I think we've covered a lot of stuff here. I know Captain, if he would have been just a little bit faster, could have stopped and saved the touchdown. I did watch that. He just got burnt. I mean, it wasn't horrible, but he was a step behind, and it's one step too many.
The only thing we really haven't touched on a lot is Minnesota giving up 6 sacks and somehow allowing I'll say aged as a nice term, Julius Peppers to return a 49-yard interception for a touchdown. I was trying
to avoid that all night. I was hoping we weren't going to talk about that, but I'm a Carolina boy from Charlotte. I love the guy. I got to meet him when he played at North Carolina. The guy, as like you said, he's seasoned. He's been around the block not once, not twice. He's been around it quite a few times.
That ball got thrown right into his arms.
Right into his arms, and I couldn't imagine how ecstatic he was, especially after watching J.J. Watt do it last week. Now, J.J.'s probably a little faster, even though he's bigger, but you let a guy that's been in the league for, 12, 13 years now get a pick six, and he's not that fast. I get it. He's explosive for a defensive end. That sums up our night right there.
I think Twitter exploded after that play.
Good to you, Julius, but I just
Took a while to put it back together, but what can you do?
Well, if you're good with it, let's look forward to next week for a little preview. I know I'm getting a little depressed talking about this.
Yeah, let's call this one closed, and let's look at next week's game against the Detroit Lions.
Fun fact, really quick. I don't know how long it's going to last this year, but we're in the mix now. Every Thursday night game, I think has been over 20 or 21 point difference. Every Thursday night game so far this season.
Yeah, well, what did they say? This was the second biggest blowout in Thursday night football history?
No, I didn't know that. That's not surprising, though.
And the last Thursday night football game that the Vikings played on was that shocker of a winner last year. It wasn't shocking that the Vikings won. It was shocking because the end of the game was so close against the Washington Redskins that I was lucky enough to attend, and that game was fantastic to be in.
I remember that game. Ponder actually had a good game, and he had to leave with an injury, and Castle stepped in and did what he does. So I remember that game.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. All right, so Minnesota's going to be facing a more dynamic front four in Detroit than they did against Green Bay. Of course, the Vikings are going to have home field advantage. They won't have to travel. It'll be in a dome, so they'll know what to expect. But still, the Minnesota Vikings offensive line is going to have to play a lot better. But more than likely, they will have a more calm, more reserved Teddy Bridgewater in the pocket instead of a nervous and skittish Christian Ponder. So hopefully that's something to cross your finger for.
I know that's going to be the storyline. If Teddy was going to be good to go, let's say tonight or tomorrow night, he should be well rested, well healed, ready to study and get his reps for Detroit. But I don't know. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I'm not excited about this game. The only excitement I have is the fact that we're only 2-3 at this point, and that it's at home. But I don't have a lot of faith in Matt Stafford just as a fan. I think he's really good because of having the best receiver in the game, and
can't hurt.
And it doesn't hurt either that he's like 6'6". He's humongous. So I'm not looking forward to this because they have a ton of potential. On paper, they have a fantastic team, and they've got a good coach now versus the catastrophe they had going on the last couple of years. But I think with the extra time that we have to get ready to heal up and to prepare, I think it should be more competitive. I would like to see us pull out a win at home against a division opponent. These wins in the division could help us out later on way more than we think, especially coming at the end of the year when we play 4 out of our last 6 games at home.
Yeah.
This could be very, very crucial.
If the Vikings can even up their record to 3-3 on Sunday, we could actually still be talking about the Vikings as being a potential playoff team.
I think we could be. I think,
and I'm saying this after seeing what happened on Thursday.
I'm just going to throw it out there, too. Me and Adam talked about this before the game came on. It doesn't matter what color you are, what gender you are. I was very irritated at people. They know how passionate I am. People that are my friends, my coworkers, they know how passionate I am. I have Viking stickers on everything when I go out. If I'm just slumming it when I'm going out, or especially at the gym, which you guys saw on the page, I'm wearing something with Vikings on it. And I had people coming left and right like, oh, you guys going to show up this game? We had literally the worst case scenario, along with not having AP, Rudolph, who else? Scott Crichton wasn't in. We had a lot of people that just didn't play.
Greenway,
Teddy was out. Chad Greenway was out. You got your third string back. We're on the road. It's raining. We had everything stacked against us to lose. We have something cool to look forward to next week. And you know what? This happened in New Orleans. How many field goals did we settle for? We didn't play as well as we wanted to. The defense played pretty good.
Yeah.
Then we came out against Atlanta and just put on a show. This may be what the Vikings are this year.
Atlanta has an amazing passing offense, and so does Detroit. So if we can see Minnesota contain that Detroit pass the way they did against Atlanta and can actually establish a run game against that Detroit front four, we could have a really interesting football game on our hands.
And the X factor, to be generic, to be Mr. ESPN, yes. Teddy should be back. I don't want to say will. I don't know what will happen between now and then, but 99% sure Teddy's going to be there. It's going to change the way we play. And I want to go back to what you said earlier. And if you saw the line, I don't think if that was Teddy out there that they would have had that effort. I think there would have been more. I'm not trying to turn this into a soap opera, but I think
Well,
that
it's hard when you don't know where to protect. I don't know if you've ever played offensive line before,
no.
but it's easier to establish a pocket when you know where your quarterback's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have a quarterback that's running backwards or running sideways before the pressure gets there, that's going to throw you off a lot. So it's going to be easier on the offensive line dealing with a quarterback who's more familiar with an established pocket or being able to maneuver in a pocket rather than trying to escape a pocket. And I think that's why the offensive line is going to be more successful against Detroit.
I can't wait to see him come in and just do what his bracelet says. Be great under major pressure. I think that's great. I think that's a very, very good description of Mr. Bridgewater.
Absolutely.
I'm going to sum it up now. I'm not trying to take command of the show or anything.
Well, we're getting ready to sign off anyway for this week, I believe.
That's fine. Guys, take what I said on the Facebook page. Be negative if you want, but keep it in a small dose. We try to keep it positive on the page.
I understand getting frustrated.
Frustration is fine, but just don't constantly be negative. I told you guys this earlier on, even before the preseason. This year is gonna be growing pains. We have a lot of new moving pieces, but I'm telling you, if you can stick it out week by week, it's gonna build the month. It's gonna build the seasons. By the time we get this new stadium around, and I've had many fans of other teams tell us that we're gonna have a hell of a football team.
Yeah, think about it. New schemes, new players, new coaches, new home stadium.
Mm-hmm.
Everything changed this year because not only did the entire focus of the team change when Adrian Peterson got put on the shelf, but we had all those other factors. And the fact that after all that, the Vikings can be sitting at 2-3 right now is actually not that shabby.
Could be worse. We could have easily shat the bed against Atlanta. we could have let St. Louis come in and give us a run for our money. You got to look at the positives, keep it together. There's a lot to be hopeful for.
Speaking of that, do you remember when Vikings were getting ripped on because they were playing against subpar competition in Austin Davis in St. Louis when he came in as the quarterback 3? Well,
yeah.
Austin Davis just won that starting job in St. Louis, so...
Fun fact of the day, but nobody's going to bring that up.
Yeah, it's funny how things like that happen, huh?
Whatever. We're not gonna stop supporting them. You guys keep your heads up. I know it's been a rough week, but
it's a tough week to be a Vikings fan, and sadly, it's a long week that we're dealing with here.
Of course.
So keep in mind that you got to change your focus now. You got to be looking towards Cincinnati. Oh no, sorry, I'm the wrong coach right now.
Touche on that. We're looking forward to Cincinnati.
But we got to be looking forward to Detroit right now. And remember that this is Vikings team. Love them for life because, man, somebody's gotta. On that note, I'd like to thank everyone for listening. And remember to stay classy, Minnesota.